Well, you see why we got the job done? That bravery and urgency comes through so clearly. So thank you very much, Gordon and Kathleen. Thank you for coming. So we are now going to go on in the same vein to talk about the prevention of concussions. And we're extremely pleased to have, we've changed the order, unfortunately. You guys may not have been aware of it. We have an audio-visual person right there. And so while they're setting up for the talk, I'm going to introduce my colleague in injury prevention, Steve Podborski. Steve is now the CEO of Parachute Canada, Canada's national injury prevention agency. Steve has injected also that element of bravery and urgency into Parachute, being perfectly aware of the consequences of risk-taking behavior as a member of the Crazy Canucks ski team that won bronze medal in the Olympics. Steve has been an executive with TELUS. He's on the Canadian Olympic Committee. He very graciously agreed to be the president and CEO of Parachute Canada, which is very dear to my heart in being an important force in our country for safety. So thank you very much for coming, Steve, and hopefully your slides are ready.
I hope so, too. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I spent a lot of time going fast, so I'm hoping they're just as fast in the background. Thank you for having me here at this important evening. We're still stretching. Here's my friend Paul, Gordon, Kathleen. I think I know you from somewhere. Who else do I know in this room? Nobody? So I used to be a ski racer in the Canadian Alpine ski team. That was what Charles was referring to. That was back in the day. The short story is that I skied very quickly and got hurt from time to time. So when I was getting the interview process for Parachute, one of the very first questions was, what on earth are you thinking that you're the guy that's going to talk about injury prevention? Dude, you go down the downhill, you're going 135, 140 kilometers an hour. You know, bad things happen when you do that. And my answer, which was pretty much off the cuff, but entirely true, was, well, you can't win when you're hurt. I was the ultimate injury prevention guy for me, because I just wanted to be in one piece at the bottom of the course so I could win. And so that is what we want our children to have, this urgency to take care of themselves and take care of their family, not to do something stupid. So we have our handout, and it says, would you skydive without a parachute? What I always add is, of course not, that's stupid. But people do stupid stuff all the time. So we're in our business is to kind of change the paradigm and to move it to the next step. I, of course, am now run out of time and things to say. How are we doing back there? Not quite yet. I saw a head shake in the mirror, or the shadow there. I can go without the slides. Watch this. Good evening, and thank you for having me here tonight for this important conversation on concussion. It really is a tough one. As many of you know, Parachute is Canada's national charity for injury prevention. I got it down to the right level. I'm with you. And our vision is a Canada free of serious injuries, where Canadians live long lives to the fullest. We know that injuries are predictable, and we have the cure. It's prevention. Our goal is to prevent serious injury and fatal harm on our roads, at home, and at play. We do that through education, through advocating for better laws and enforcement, as well as for changes to our physical environment. Concussion is an injury we see frequently in our areas of focus, which is motor vehicle crashes and injuries sustained in sports and recreation. We have been proud to lead the national movement in Canada for the past 2 years to adopt harmonized protocols for recognition and management of concussion across all the sports, and I'll have more on that in just a minute. Now, Parachute and one of its predecessor organizations, Think First Canada, have long been involved in sharing the latest information about concussion, including through its program, one of my favorites, Brainwaves, where trained volunteers share information about brain health and protection to 30,000 kids right across Canada in grades 4 to 6. However, our efforts got a significant boost in 2016 when the Public Health Agency of Canada funded Parachute to lead the creation of what is now called the Canadian Guideline on Concussion in Sport. It launched in July of 2017. The guideline is meant to ensure that athletes with a suspected concussion receive timely and appropriate care and proper management to allow them to return to sport. We work with a national advisory panel of 14 concussion experts to develop the guideline, as well as the Public Health Agency of Canada, Sport Canada, the Federal Provincial Territorial Working Group on Concussions, national sport organizations, and multi-sport service organizations such as Athletes Can. Now, the guideline is based on review of the current scientific evidence and expert consensus on best practices for the evaluation and management of Canadian athletes who sustain a concussion during sport activity. The guideline, as monumental an achievement as it is, remains only words on a page, unless they are read and absorbed and used by all the stakeholders who interact with athletes inside and outside the context of school and non-school-based sports. And they include the athletes themselves, the parents, the coaches, officials, the teachers, the trainers, and licensed healthcare professionals. Everybody has to be on board. We recognize the need for consistency across the Canadian sport landscape, that no matter where or how you were injured, you should be assessed and treated using the latest evidence-based research. The guideline covers prevention, recognition, diagnosis, and management of sport-related concussion, although the principles can apply to any concussion, no matter what the cause. Following that is medical assessment. We start with preseason education. You start first with figuring it out. Next, to do head injury recognition, guidance for on-site medical evaluation. Following that medical assessment off the field, you got to go to see the doctor and say, do I have a concussion? Recommended treatment and management, and it includes multidisciplinary concussion care, like when you got a tough one. And finally, and importantly, the guideline sets out how and when to return to school and how and when to return to sport. All in a step-by-step progressive way. It's the whole package. Now, I just talked about this. I was a world champion skier. I'm often asked if I had a concussion. And the answer is, oh yeah, I have. But I was lucky enough to be surrounded by the best medical advice possible in my competitive years, and I fully recovered. I want no less for any Canadian. Now, Parachute is also leading the harmonization of concussion protocols among Canadian amateur sport organizations such as Hockey Canada, they're in, Equine Canada, they're in, Athletics Canada, they're in. We want to ensure that our national sport organizations have evidence-based concussion protocols harmonized with the Canadian Guideline on Concussion in Sports, as well as the international consensus statement on concussion in sport, all the stuff. Yet it's tailored to meet the specific needs of each one of those sports. That alignment ensures that while every concussion protocol will not be identical, in fact, each will be based on the same core principles. Now, the Public Health Agency of Canada set a goal for us to have 20 of Canada's national sport organizations align with and adopt these protocols within a year. So we started in July. As of today, 9 months into the project, we've worked with 42 NSOs, so 110% over the goal in 3/4 of the time period we were meant to do it. Oh, I love you. I'm a performance guy. So we've created many tools to support guideline adoption, including the Concussion Ed app. It's available through iTunes and Google Play. This free mobile app is primarily developed for youth, for parents, educators, but covers concussions throughout different scenarios for quite a wide audience. It's available in English and French, and Concussion Ed is organized to prevent, recognize, manage, and track. And we recently went through it to harmonize it with our guidelines, so it is right up to date. Our team also created 6 turnkey tool resources for the national sport organizations. These can and are being used by other sport organizations across Canada. For example, Sport Manitoba has required that all their provincial sport organizations, Alpine Canada, Alpine Manitoba, wrong province, Alpine Manitoba, so they have to develop a concussion protocol and return to sport strategy using our parachute guideline, using our protocols, and using our tools. The Winnipeg School Division has required all its schools to use the guideline, the protocol, and the resources to develop a concussion protocol. Every week, more groups reach out to us and say, can we use this? Can we adopt the protocols? The answer, of course, is yes. Even PEI, the entire province, is using our protocol in their healthcare system. The Public Health Agency also wanted us, this is one of my best slides, I cannot believe it's not coming up. The Public Health Agency also wanted us to spread the message about concussion protocols widely through social media. It's just, we have all our different avenues. In almost all the instances, we've doubled our benchmark goals. We've earned nearly 6 million total social media impressions and 60,000 visits to Parachute's English and French concussion resource websites. The guideline announcement had significant traditional media coverage, even though it was on Friday in Winnipeg in the summer. More than 5 million media impressions and 25 stories were published. We continue our work to get the word out about proper prevention of and recovery from concussion. In fall of 2017, I joined a panel on CBC Sports for a 1-hour discussion on concussion and appeared in March on the agenda with Steve Pagan on TVO to talk about next steps on concussion awareness following the passing of Rowan's Law in Ontario. Thanks, guys. Parachute has been invited to present at 16 conferences, webinars, and events reaching more than 1,800 people. The invitations continue to arrive, including Equine Canada and Rugby Canada. And we know that concussions can happen anywhere and anytime. They don't just happen on a sports field or a ski hill or in an arena. They can result from a motor vehicle crash or a fall or a blow anywhere. So while our primary focus in the next months is getting the word out among the athletic and sport communities, all Canadians need to recognize the importance of getting a head injury checked out by a medical professional, of taking the time to get a proper diagnosis, and starting and finishing your concussion recovery. I'd love to see our concussion protocols expanded to schools, sport clubs, homes, and workplaces across our great nation of Canada. But that's a big, big deal. Well, with your ongoing support, we can and we will make that happen. Thank you.